Hey, everybody, welcome to my guest tonight. I'm Jeff Villa, your host. I've got an amazing guest joining me tonight, Teri M. Brown, author, podcast host, inspirational speaker, double butted adventure.
She pedaled coast to coast, chasing dreams and finding might. From heartbreak to healing, under stars and morning light. With tales of fiction, truth, and flight. It's Teri M. Brown on my guest tonight. Double butted adventure, a journey so real. Jeff Villa's the host with the mic and some zeal. Tune in now, don't miss the ride. On my guest tonight, let the stories collide.
Teri, welcome to the show.
That is a first. I have never had a song made for me before. I could just go home right now and be done. This is great.
Well, I hope to tease the show a little bit and tell a little bit about your story, a little foreshadowing. And in full transparency, you're the first guest I didn't tell that I did that for. So you got it actually in the moment and you got to react to it without even knowing it was coming. So
Well, I think you should do that for all your guests because
Don't
there
tell
was
them.
something no, really, there was something really cool about that. So I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's been the reaction too. I've this is probably episode 17 or 18, and I'm 16 for 16 on people loving their song for them.
Yes, absolutely. It's great.
So I'm looking through your notes, and I also have about 10 pages of notes on you. I got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. We have about 30 minutes to do it. And I mentioned, I think you were you called a self-described Air Force brat that was
Right.
born in Greece. Tell us a little bit about, where you came from and how'd you get to
Yeah.
Greece?
So I was in Greece because my dad was in the Air Force and we were in a little town outside of Athens. It was a joint Air Force base. They didn't even have a clinic on base. And so I was born in an Athens hospital. My mother was 20 years old. She spoke no Greek and her doctor spoke no English. And so I can't even imagine, like I have 4 children and I cannot even imagine being in a foreign country as a 20-year-old giving birth to a baby. That's just crazy. We lived there for a couple of years. I really don't have any remembrance of it. I've been back since with my mom, but I don't have any remembrance of it when I was a kid. And then I lived in Ohio, eventually moved to North Carolina when I was in high school. And yeah, I kind of went from there.
Kind of went all over the place, and
Yeah.
looks like you studied in North Carolina. Ended up going to college in North Carolina.
Yeah, I went to UNC Greensboro. At the time, I had zero idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. None. And my parents knew that they wanted me to get a degree in something that would give me a job. So, like, creative writing was never going to be that thing. So that wasn't even considered. Unfortunately for them, I got 2 majors and 2 minors and never used any of it. So I have a degree in education, I have a degree in psychology, and I have a minor in sociology and a minor in math. And I never really used any of it. I guess I'm using all of it now as a writer, but I didn't really use any of it for this big paid occupation they thought they were paying for.
And that's a very common theme. A lot of creatives that I've met so far doing the show is they went to school with one intention, but something kind of steered them away into another direction. And when you came out of college, what were your first steps? You're in the real world now. What you
Right.
got these degrees. What are you going to do next?
So I ended up working for a bank. I had been a bank teller for a while, and then I did something, they called it proofing. They don't even do that now. And that's when the checks would come through, and there was a proof operator that would sit there and key in so that the amount of the check would be keyed in at the bottom, right along where the account numbers were. And the faster you went, the more they paid you. And I was really fast on that keyboard. And so for a long time, I just did that because I couldn't find another job that would pay me that kind of money. Then I ended up getting married. I had 4 children. I decided to homeschool. So I pretty much was home with my kids. About the time that they were, middle school to like middle of elementary was the age range. we really needed me to have an income. I had to do something. And so I started writing for small businesses. You figure in 2000, the internet was a relatively new thing. And there were a lot of small companies that were putting their businesses out. They were getting their very first website, and what they were putting on them was really horrible. I can't even begin to tell you the terrible descriptions and things they had. And I realized, this is something I can do, and I can do this from home in time around my children. And so I started doing that. I did that for nearly 20 years. In that period of time, I got a divorce. I remarried, and that second marriage was probably the biggest mistake of my life. He was emotionally abusive, but I didn't want to be divorced twice. So I stuck with it for 14 years. And it was during that time that I started to think, I really want to be an actual writer, like an author. I want to write my books. But that isn't a safe time to do it. When you're living with someone who can't say anything nice to you and you don't feel like you're good enough anyway, taking all of your creative juices and then throwing them out into the public sounds like a really bad idea. But I got out of that relationship in 2017. And when I did, words started pouring out of me. And so I started writing manuscript after manuscript after manuscript.
And if we go back to the turn of the century, as I like to call it, the 2000s, the you started right. I romanticize about that period of the internet. To me, it was the Wild West. You're right.
Yes.
People were just publishing anything, and it was chaotic, but it was beautiful. It was new mediums and new ways to be creative online. And you're right. Some of the content was atrocious. Did you have any? Did you tend to lean towards a certain type of business, or were you freelancing for all kinds of businesses, or did you have kind of a niche?
I actually did it for a lot of different businesses, but I soon found myself doing quite a bit in the real estate space. There were a lot of real estate agents, and real estate agents were also looking for other writing. They would want a little ebook on 10 things you should know before buying a house for the first time and that kind of thing. So I liked working with real estate agents because it gave me the opportunity to expand with them a little bit. And I had several clients that had me write multiple little manuals and ebooks and things for their clients, which was great because it means I wasn't constantly scrambling for another client. When you have a very small business and you write their website content, most of the time they were done. They weren't writing blogs, they weren't doing anything else. They just needed that one, so it was a one and done. And so real estate agents were often really good for me.
And is that how you came up with, maybe is that one of your early publications, the
Yeah.
301 simple things
Yes.
you can do to sell your house now? Did that come from taking these freelance jobs, writing
It
for?
actually did. There was a little publishing company in Florida that reached out to me and said, "Hey, we had an author that was going to write a book on it was real estate investing." And I said, "Look, I don't know anything about investing." They said, "We can give you all the research. We need someone who can write it." And so I wrote it. And I was super excited to have my name on it, but that's really all it was. It was never my book. I mean, it was, my name's on it, but I didn't get any royalties or anything like that. And I did a couple of more books with them that were in the real estate space as well. And that really helped. And then that was actually really good advertising for when I would go back to small businesses. It would be like, "Oh yeah, I have books in this space." And then they would want me to write their information. So that's kind of where it got started, but that's where the bug hit me. The first time that I had my name in print, because when you're writing for websites, your name doesn't get in print. If you look on other people's websites, it doesn't say in the bottom written by, but the first time that I wrote a book and this real estate investing book came back to me, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's my name. And there's just something about seeing your name on a book that is very exciting.
I know it's very early days and before social media, but in all those writings, did you have anything that was kind of a viral moment, or people recognize you from the book, or any kind
I
of
didn't
interactions?
I didn't have it then, although it's really funny you should say that. Today, I had a very little small thing. I was at a local, one of these artist markets, right? And and it was hot. Oh, I live on the coast of North Carolina, and it was just brutal today. And I was out there, and this young teenager, probably not driving yet, ran up to me all excited and said, "Oh my gosh, my mom has read all your books." And they live in another state. "My mom has read all of your books. Can I get a picture of you?" And it was like, yeah, so no, it didn't happen then, but it's happened a couple of times now. And let me tell you, I could have packed up my things and gone home. It was like, okay, my day's made. This is perfect,
So as you're writing this content for internet, are you finding more and more passion towards writing, or are you
Yeah.
elaborating on these real estate spaces and creating worlds in your mind?
I mean, I was to an extent, but there was that piece of me that was really closed up. I'm living in this emotionally abusive space, and there's just a real fear of letting me out on a page. And so I kind of kept it all inside, but boy, did I want it. I had several people that I knew that were writing something, and I would reach out and talk to them. And I kept thinking, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I got out of that relationship and immediately went on this 1 week writer's retreat. And in 1 week, I wrote a 50,000 word manuscript. It just like fell right out of me. Now, it was no good. That one will never see the light of day. It was not good, but it taught me so much. It made me realize, first of all, I had 50,000 words in me and that they were made up. It wasn't like, with nonfiction, you kind of know what you're going to write. There's 10 steps, you figure out the 10 steps, you write the 10 steps. With a novel, it's way more in your head, or you have to come up with, where is this story going? So it had a beginning, a middle, and end. It had characters. It'd be like looking at maybe Picasso's first painting, right? It probably wasn't very good. He's still figuring out how to hold the brush and mix the paints. And so that's the way I feel, is it taught me that I could do it. And then I had to figure out exactly how that would look. Yeah.
So that retreat, did that really ignite the spark then? Is that
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
like, you came back and you're like, I'm a writer?
Well, no, that's funny. No, I
Yeah.
came back and wanted to be a writer, but talk about terrible imposter syndrome. I mean, I was sure that I was no good. You have to remember now, I'd spent 14 years in this abusive relationship. And just because you're out of it doesn't mean you're healed. I was still a basket full of anxiety and doubts, and didn't believe in myself. And it's crazy. I met who became my husband, and he just kept telling me, "Oh, I love what you write and everything else." But I thought, yeah, of course that's what you're going to say. What else would you say to me? I mean, that would be horrible if you said anything else. But he had been wanting to ride a bicycle across the United States. That was something on his bucket list. He saw a group of kids do it in 1976 for the bicentennial, and he would have dropped everything to go do it, except he was in the military, and it's not like they were going to give him 3 months off to go on this, random adventure. So as we're dating, he brings this up to me. Well, I had been saying to myself that I wanted to do something big and bold, huge, that would prove to people that I still had value and worth. Well, no one else doubted it. It was just me doubting it. But, I didn't know that at the time. And so I just asked him, is this something you're going to talk about until the day you die, or are you going to do it? He said, no, I really want to do it. I said, count me in. I mean, we weren't married. I had no intention of ever getting married again. But I thought I'd go on this adventure. And what's really crazy is I hadn't been on a bicycle in 40 years at that point. So this was really huge and really outside my comfort zone.
And let's back up. This isn't just a normal bicycle.
No, it's a tandem.
It's a tandem bicycle. So you're going across country on a tandem bicycle.
On a tandem bicycle. And really, for us, that was the best thing. My husband was an avid cycler and had been since middle school. And by avid, I mean he did racing and he did all of this. And then there was me. And I hadn't been on a bicycle in 40 years. There's no way that I'm going to be able to catch up to his ability. And so if we had been on separate bikes, it wouldn't have been any fun for me. He would have always been 2 days ahead of me. I would have never caught up with him. It would have been horrible. But on a tandem bicycle, he can't go faster than me and I can't go slower than him. We have to work together and we have to figure out how that works. And what's really great is we were gone for 3 months, a little over 3 months, and it feels like we got about 20 years worth of marriage experience in those 3 months because we did everything together. We were never apart. We slept in a little tent together. We pedaled together. We cooked all our meals together. We did absolutely everything together. So we say that in tandem time, we've been married 20 years longer than we are in Earth time.
Did you had to carry all your supplies, or did somebody
Yeah.
follow with you, or
No,
do you have
no, no.
a
We were
car?
by ourselves.
Yeah.
We had panniers, which are like backpacks for the tires, front and back. And then we had a kids trailer with no children in it, and that's where we put our tent and other supplies like that. And off we went. And the crazy thing is this was the summer of 2020, so COVID summer,
Mid COVID,
mid
we're
COVID.
going
Yeah.
across country.
Yeah, and we did, and we left Astoria, Oregon, and rode 3,102 miles to Washington, D.C.
You started the home of the Goonies.
Yeah. It was a crazy, crazy adventure, but it was after that ride that I became a writer.
And
Because go
it's
ahead.
10 little rules for a double-butted adventure,
Right.
and I've
Right.
never heard a tandem bike called double-butted. I wanna refer to my bicycle now as single-butted.
Single-butted
Is
adventure.
that
Yeah.
proper term? Can I
Sure, sure. Why not? It's funny. When we were riding across the United States, I kept a blog and I kept it every day and I told every little detail that you could know. So, what was the temperature? How many miles did we go? Did we have any flat tires? How many mosquitoes did we run into? And so I had the whole thing laid out. Um, and I called it Double Butted Adventures. And it's crazy. And in my book, I talk about this. I came up with it as kind of a, play on words, double butted, right? And my husband, who's an engineer, and not as creative. I mean, he's creative in his own way, but not in that way, said, "Oh, double butted, like double butted steel, the kind of steel they use to put together a tandem bicycle." And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So it turns out that it fit both of us beautifully. Me
it's
for
just
my creative, and then him for, this is a technical term for the way they do steel tubing in order to make it strong, even though it's long and thin.
and going 3,000 miles across the country, how many flat tires did you end up having? Did you keep track of that stat?
Yeah, I don't know. I know there was one day where we had 3.
3 in
It
one
was
day.
it was horrible.
Yeah.
That was the day we were going to quit. I was going to quit. I was done. I was ready to call it off. It was a horribly long, hot day with the wind blowing the wrong way and 3 flat tires, and I was just done. But we made
There
it.
was
So
It's not like you could just DoorDash from your local
no,
bicycle
no.
shop, so let's say you're on the road, you had to carry those supplies as
Yes,
well too, those were all
yes.
with you.
Yeah, we had several different tubes and patch kits and chain repair stuff. And my husband is one of those people that he's always prepared and then he has a plan for his plan. And so every screw that could fall off on a bicycle, he had in a baggie.
Yeah.
And he just would fix things on the side of the road. I wouldn't have been able to do this trip without him because I don't know enough about bicycle mechanics. If I was going to do a trip like that, I would have had to have gone in a group where they had the wagon that came up behind you and could help you if you had problems or whatever.
Yeah, I would need room service as well.
Yeah. That would have been nice on several occasions, I can tell you.
Did you stay mostly in the northern part of the country, or
Yes.
was there
Yeah.
a part that you really reflect back on, like, that part of the country, I really found myself, I found clarity, I was there a
I
part of the
found
country that just resonated with you?
Yeah, I found clarity all along the way, but I think that one of the places that really sticks out to me is Lolo Pass, and that is in Idaho, and you go over the Rocky Mountains and then down into Montana. And it was 3 days of up as we're crossing the Rockies, and it was beautiful. I have so many pictures of that period of time. We would go around a corner and I would say, "Oh, you have to stop and let me get a picture. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And, 400 yards later, "Oh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And so he got to the point I'd go, "Oh," and he'd say, "I know, we need to stop." And he was very good about that, letting me see this. And I think getting over the Rockies, it was something that had been terrifying to me. I couldn't imagine how I was going to be able to manage to do that. And so once we got over the Rockies, from that point on, although we hit many difficult things after that, I think I believed a little more that I could do it because I had made it over the Rocky Mountains.
Was there kind of did you kind of know the halfway point, or do you have markers along the way that were these goals you wanted to achieve?
I tried not to do that
Yeah.
because you almost have to ride every day as its own thing. In fact, when we were finished, it was very hard to imagine that we had made it the whole way across, because instead of riding, we rode for 72 riding days and we were gone for over 90 days, because some days you have to take breaks. And I told people I didn't really ride 72 days. I rode one day 72 times, if that makes any sense. And it was really hard. It was like, I knew I did it. I had pictures. I have, memories of all the different places along the way, but I couldn't seem to add it all up, where all of a sudden here we are. And when we got to Washington, D.C., that was kind of my big aha moment. And we were coming into DC. We were stopping at the Marine Corps Memorial. My husband was a Marine, and we were raising money for Toys for Tots. So it seemed like a wonderful place to stop. And he said, "Do you see that flag?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's it. That's where we're stopping." And I started to laugh and cry at the same time. I was just a big emotional mess. And I thought, I did it. I rode all the way across the United States. I can do anything I put my mind to. It's not a matter of, can I do it? It's a matter of, what do I want to do? And I thought, I want to be an author. And 14 months later, my first novel came out.
That's got to be the most incredible feeling. Like, I'm invincible.
Yeah.
I did something like 200, 300 people may have done in their whole. I don't even know how many people have done that.
I
But
have no idea, but I just know that it's not many. And now when I go to these, have you ever been at a party where they say, come up with one thing you think you've done that no one else has ever done? It's like, I don't even have to think anymore.
yeah,
What's the likelihood I'm going to run into another person that rode across the United States on a tandem bicycle? It's pretty slim. And so,
yeah. Tandem even lowers the amount of
right,
people.
right.
People have done it on bicycles, but even that's not in the
It's not
thousands.
an everyday. It's not an
Yeah,
everyday
yeah.
thing, but a tandem is really a very unusual thing.
And that also led to, I believe you started creating a children's series. A children's book just
Yeah.
came out in the last
Yes.
couple of months. And did that kind of get unlocked during this
Yes,
trip?
it
Or
actually did. When you're sitting so I was on the back of the tandem, which makes the most sense. My husband was like I said, a lifelong cyclist, and you would want someone like that on the front. He knows what to look for with the traffic. He just knows more. So I'm on the back and I'm doing the grunt work, and I'm pedaling, but it gave me a lot of time to kind of look around and think. And we were along Highway 2 for all the way across Montana, all the way across North Dakota. We just kept going. And along that highway is a train line. And after a while, those engineers knew us, because they would go one way and they'd come back the other, and they would beep and wave. It was like, yeah, really. And they'd wave at us, and they got to know us. And my mind started going around about trains and different kinds of trains. And this idea came to me, which is my book. It's called Little Lola and Her Big Dream. And Lola wants to be an astronaut train. And all of her friends laugh at her and say there's no such thing. So she goes and talks with some trains about things that they were, so the kids can learn about other trains. But in the end, she decides that she's going to hold on to her dream. And the really cool thing is as soon as I finished writing the book, I had it written. My illustrations were on the way. There was an article from NASA that came out, and they're planning to put a train on the moon. Because they want to put the space station on the moon, and they need to be able to get from the dark side to the light side of the moon. And so they're going to put a train. And so my author note tells the children, when I started writing this book, Lola couldn't have been a space train, but now she can be. That's why you need to keep your dreams. So.
and that just came out this year, April.
Yeah, it came out in
2025?
April. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. And a part of supporting all this now, you went to school, a completely different study, not writing. You've
Yep.
written some books, and now you have a podcast as well that's
I do.
online for authors. Tell us a little bit about that, or what's coming from this podcast that you're
Yeah.
putting out into the world.
So online for authors was kind of an idea of mine when I started realizing that I needed to do marketing. You get out there, you write your book, you think it's going to sell itself. It does not. You figure out very quickly you need to determine what to do for marketing. I started becoming a guest on podcasts, and I loved it. I love this back and forth and the ability to chat. And What I noted though is when I talked with podcast hosts that had read the book, I had very different kinds of questions than if I talked with podcast guests who only read like the back cover. And often they would ask me questions that were like didn't relate to me at all, and I had to figure out how do I answer that. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a podcast out there that they read the book first? So that's what I do. It's called Online for Authors, and I authors send me their book. I read it. If I feel like it's a good fit for my audience, I bring them on the show. So I'm reading about 75 books a year now. And I have people come on and we chat about their books without giving away the endings so that people can kind of get a feel for what this book is like. It would be like going to a book club, but only staying for the first little bit of it where we're only talking about the beginning of the book. And then you have to go and read the rest.
You try to get out some behind the scenes
Yeah,
stories and
I do. And like, I've done quite a few of people who are doing memoir, which I also really enjoy reading. And so I'll say things like, can you tell me a story that you wanted to put in, but you had to cut because of whatever reason? And so we get those kinds of things. And we talk about things like when you write, you can either be a real planner, and they call those plotters, or you can be someone who writes by the seat of their pants, which is a pantser, and that's what I am. And so I asked that question, which are you and why, and those kinds of questions. So it's a lot of fun.
you've got the books, you've got the podcast. Any direction that you see yourself taking this? Do you want to do more public speaking or meet
I
and greets or
do.
conventions?
I
What do you have
really,
what do you have on the schedule for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I really, really want to do motivational speaking, especially now that my 10 Little Rules for Double-Butted Adventure is out. Those are 10 rules. They're not really about the cycling ride as much as they are about life lessons that I learned. Things that help me live a more adventurous life. And each one of those rules could easily be, a talk like in corporate America or something. I could do that. I'm really looking for a way to start doing that kind of talking. What's coming up this year, I've got a 26-day residency that I'm going to in August. So I'll be gone the whole month of August writing. And I have another residency the end of October, and I'll be writing, which I'm really excited about. I have a lot of one-day events where I'm going to be selling my books and quite a few book clubs and all of that. But I would really love to find myself speaking either to corporate America or universities. I think would be a great place for me to go and talk with, college kids who are trying to figure out what they want to do with their life.
Well, if people want to connect with you, they want to hear the podcast or reach
Yeah.
out or send you their book to be a potential guest on your podcast, what's the best way to find you and to find the podcast?
Yeah, the best way is to go to my website, which is my name, TeriMBrown.com, and that's Teri with one R. On the website, you can find my podcast. You can find all my books. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can see all my social media. And I even just have a reach out to me form that you can fill out and send to me. And I try to get back with everybody that reaches out to me.
Teri, this has been so much fun. You took us on quite the journey going across the country, started in Greece, and a couple books, a podcast. Let's hear that theme song.
She pedaled coast to coast, chasing dreams and finding might. From heartbreak to healing, under stars and morning light. With tales of fiction, truth, and flight. It's Teri M on my guest tonight. Double-butted adventure, a journey so real. Jeff reveals the host with a mic and some zeal. Tune in now, don't miss the ride. On my guest tonight, let the stories collide.
Backstage dancing. It's funny, like you create the songs based off the notes that I have, and then we have the discussion, and it's There's a lot of foreshadowing in that song about what we talked about.
Absolutely. That is so crazy. That song, I'm gonna be grinning for days over that. That is fabulous. That is so do you have AI that does that?